By now you know the Ball brothers, Lonzo, LiAngelo, and LaMelo Ball. These three precocious basketball players gained fame and notoriety just as their father LeVar Ball had confidently predicted when I first met him. Yet my story with the Ball brothers takes place before the ESPN interviews and the social media followers. This is a story from the perspective of a former basketball player turned photographer. This is my story photographing the Ball brothers. Although I began my career as a journalist, I later gravitated to portrait photography because of the ability to connect with people on a deep level. You are able to break the mold of conventional journalism and collaborate with the subject to make images rather than wait for them. In order to do this, I need time and patience, along with a willing subject that I am enthusiastic to photograph. I thought the idea of photographing basketball players before they were famous would bring a fresh perspective on a subject that is very familiar to fans and myself. My story began on a January 2015 night in Chino Hills, California. I looked online and read the scouting reports that said Lonzo Ball was the best high school point guard in California. He was only a junior. I had no expectations as I drove to Chino Hills High School. When I walked into the gym, the game had already begun. It was an average-sized high school gym with plenty of empty seats. I sat underneath the basket and began photographing. No one seemed to care as I captured photos of a kid built like a baseball or football player, catching the ball in the post and hitting jump shot after jump shot. Who is that kid, I thought? He seems like the best player on the court. I later found out it was LiAngelo Ball, Lonzo's brother. I had never heard of him. Lonzo seemed content with distributing the ball to his brother in a lackluster win over a team they should have blown out. Lonzo seemed disinterested, even slightly bored. His talent was evident, but he only showed it in a few bursts of brilliance. Otherwise, LiAngelo seemed like the best player on the court and scored around half of Chino Hills' points. LiAngelo was a sophomore. After the game, I began talking with two kids sitting in the bleachers as I waited to introduce myself to Chino Hills head coach Steve Baek, who was talking with a tall blonde woman. That tall woman, I later learned, was Tina Ball, Lonzo's mom. "How come you guys weren't playing?" I asked these two kids. The kid on the right was about 6'6". The kid on the left was about 5'8" or 5'9". "We're only in 8th grade," said the taller kid. "Oh, I see." The taller kid was Onyeka Okongwu, and the shorter kid was LaMelo Ball. In the following year, these best friends shared the award of being named Max Prep's National High School Freshman of the Year. Later, as teenagers, they both were NBA lottery picks, and in 2021, LaMelo was named NBA Rookie of the Year. Now back to my story. So moments later, LaMelo is holding a basketball on the other side of the court near the foul line. There's one other student on the other side of the court. LaMelo throws the ball full court and smiles as it swishes through the hoop. That was the first shot I had ever seen LaMelo take. LeVar's father, standing next to Tina, started chuckling and said with a proud smile, "Melo, that's my boy." The grandfather sees me looking at him and he said, "I see him do that after every game." Who is that kid, I thought, still not knowing that they were all the Ball family. After a while, Tina stopped talking and I introduced myself to Coach Baek and explained to him who I was and that I wanted to photograph Lonzo Ball. He then pointed out LeVar Ball, telling me I needed to go talk to him. So I walked over to LeVar, who was wearing a white t-shirt that said Team Ball, #WeRunnin'. I introduced myself and explained to him what I wanted to do, and to my surprise, he was very receptive to the idea. In fact, he immediately invited me to his house, which is only a few minutes away. As we walked out of the gym together, only LeVar and I was showing him photo ideas and examples of my work on my iPad. He briefly glanced at the photos, but I could tell he didn't need any convincing for a photo shoot with his boys. He had a big black SUV that was parked on the sidewalk right outside the doors as we left the school. All the other cars were parked in the parking lot. I got into the passenger side. "This is great, Brett. My boys need to get used to photo shoots in this type of exposure. I keep telling them that," said LeVar. Listening to the conviction and confidence in LeVar's words, he soon had me convinced. When we arrived at his house, he parked in the driveway. Inside the two-door garage was a resplendent Escalade with a license plate that read, "Zoe to UCLA." Looking at the Escalade, LeVar said, "That's Zoe's ride. You see, Brett? My boys have everything they need right here. They don't need to look for anything on the outside. They got it all here, so they can just focus on basketball." "Well, they got the right name for it," I said. "That's what I tell people. With the name Ball, you got a ball," he said enthusiastically with a smile. I laughed. Next to the Escalade was some weightlifting and basketball equipment. On the wall were a few photos that LeVar had taken of his boys posing on their basketball court. I pointed to one of the photos which showed Lonzo, age 11 or 12, sitting on the basketball rim wearing a crown in his head. Then he took me inside his house and onto his second-story balcony, which overlooked his basketball court and swimming pool. The court had 2 basketball hoops. LeVar was in his element. Once he's on, he keeps going. "This is just the beginning, Brett. This thing is gonna get huge." The conversation turned to Lonzo because that's the player it seemed had the most hype around him. But I told LeVar that it looked like Lonzo was just going through the motions, like he was bored on the court. "He's been bored since his freshman year," said LeVar. "By his sophomore year, Zoe could have played in the NBA. Right now, there's no competition for him in high school. I'm telling you, Brett, this whole thing is gonna get huge. My boys are gonna blow up. Lonzo is gonna be better than Jordan. I've been telling Zoe, eventually someone has to be better than Jordan. It might as well be you." We chatted for a while and then went back to the garage so I could meet LeVar's sons, who always entered through the garage into the house. First it was LiAngelo, who LeVar introduced me to. Very brief, nothing special. Then Lonzo walked in. Lonzo looked at his father and nodded. "Zoe, this is Brett. He came to see you play for the first time, and he said it looked like you were just going through the motions out there." "What did we talk about, son?" said LeVar. Lonzo hung his head like a scolded puppy. "You gotta go hard every night. You never know who is watching. You gotta bring it every night." LeVar reprimanded and questioned his son for a few more minutes as Lonzo nodded his head in agreement. "Was that how I taught you how to play?" asked LeVar with his voice raised. "No," said Lonzo, shaking his head. "No off days," said LeVar. "I don't want to see that again." "Yes, sir," said Lonzo. "Zoe, I want you to meet Brett," said LeVar. "He's a photographer and is going to be doing a shoot with you and Jello and Mello." Lonzo shook my hand and LeVar said he could go into the house and shower. I felt like LeVar threw me under the bus. It wasn't exactly the introduction I was looking for. Great. Now Lonzo hates me, I thought. But stepping back and thinking about it, LeVar was right. If you want greatness, if you want to be better than Jordan, you can't ever take an off day. I never asked Lonzo about that initial interaction, but it was evident by the rest of his high school career, he took it to heart.